on Friday, Cal Raleigh came through in the clutch when many fans thought he was struggling, as Drew Rasmussen faced off against Luis Castillo, and the new lineup experience has been paying off. Welcome to the Dom Skiing Channel, your one-stop shop for the Mariners storylines on Seattle's minds. And in this one, the Mariners win 3-2 in the bottom of the 8th inning on an absolute clutch 3-run home run after getting shut out for the previous 7 innings. Cal Raleigh comes through with the 3-run homer in the 8th inning to win the game for the Mariners. All 3 hitters in the top of the lineup had 3 hard hits. That's Randy, Cal, and then Julio. Jorge had one himself, so did Gino. Solano had 2, JP had 2, Cole Young had 1, and Canzone will barrel the ball up a ton as well, so he's the only member of the lineup not to get a hard hit tonight. We really scorched through Rasmussen here as he gives up 12 hard hits, on just 79 pitches. He does go 6 innings, with which, if you follow the Rays at all, or if you played fantasy or anything, you'll know that Drew Rasmussen has been one of the premier pitchers in the MLB this year through the first half of the season. He was an all-star with the Rays, and his ERA is great at 2.66. It's been in the low to mid 2s all year pretty much. But the length is the problem for him, as he's a reliever turned starter. The Rays have been limiting his innings extremely cautiously, and they announced right before the All-Star break that they would be really limiting his innings in the second half of the season. But he does get to 6 innings here on 79 pitches. Maybe he was on an 80 pitch count limit, but that's where it makes it essential, more than ever so, to get the pitch count up and have pests, which is something we've been talking about a lot here on this channel. Because when Ben Williamson got sent down to Tacoma after the Eugenio Suarez trade, which I would prefer to have Ben Williamson still playing third base, even though Gino's got one of the best arms in the MLB from that position. I think Ben Williamson overall at the hot corner was just such a good defender that, he was quite possibly, you could make an argument, the best defender in the infield. Cal Raleigh's been very, very good this year as well on the catching side, the reigning Platinum Glove Award winner. Although I still think Julio Rodriguez should win the Platinum Glove Award this year in the MLB. I think he's been the best defender, played a perfect center field. He's, last I checked, which was a week or 2 ago, so excuse me that this isn't true anymore, but he's top 5 or 10 in both innings played, defensive runs saved, defensive UZR, every outs above average, every single stat, no errors, perfect center field with more basically above average plays than anybody. But Drew Rasmussen giving up all 12 of these hard hits on 79 pitches is the story. He only gives up 4 hits and blanks the Mariners for 6 innings regardless. So we don't even get necessarily, we don't get any meaningful offense. The Rays are still shutting us out by the time Drew Rasmussen comes out of the game in the 7th inning. But he only strikes us out 4 times. We get that pitch count way up to 79 pitches. That's not really even getting it way up. He still had a chance, if I pitched really, really quickly to get through a complete game shutout. But the fact that you're hitting him hard enough, get him out of there in the 6th inning. They bring in Garrett Clevenger, who blanks us in the 7th on 9 pitches. But then Griffin Jacks, you just have to keep working through it. And although Rasmussen 2.66 ERA, Clevenger 2.14 ERA, Jacks is the guy that when I talk to Mariners fans, I hear, oh, we just got to stay away from Jacks this series, right? Try to keep, stay ahead before the late innings, get ahead before the late innings, so that we can stay away from Jacks. Because if they're throwing Jacks in there in a close game, who they just acquired from the Twins at the trade deadline, one of the premier set-up men in the MLB. He's actually the guy with the 4.93 ERA who comes in and gives up the 3-run homer to Cal Raleigh. Then it allows the Mariners to score all 3 runs, win the ball game. But the Mariners deserve to win this ball game, and that 3-run homer was a case of things just normalizing at the end. Because you look at the 12 hard hits on 79 pitches, whereas the Rays did pretty well against Luis Castillo themselves. Luis Castillo gets through 7 strong innings, though, on 99 pitches. only gets hit 5 times, has 2 earned runs, doesn't walk anybody. Surprisingly enough, there wasn't a single walk in this game on either side. I don't know exactly what the last time that's happened is, but when the Mariners play some really, really good teams, it's funny, the strategy is going away from walks, and it's going more towards the other 2 outcomes, with the strikeouts. Funny enough, the Rays only had 5 total strikeouts in 9 innings tonight, or 8 innings technically, and the Mariners only had 8. So a low strikeout and low walk game. But the pitch count's getting driven up, even though the pitchers had filthy stuff. Luis Castillo, getting the 5 strikeouts to no walks, 7 innings of 2-run ball on 5 hits again, and then but he does give up 2 homers. Both of the runs came on homers by Brandon Lowe and then Junior Caminero, hitters that when they're hot, they're definitely a guy you got to watch out for. Luis Castillo only giving up 9 hard hits on 99 pitches. So both teams hitting the ball hard, driving the pitch count up. Then Vargas comes in, gets a scoreless inning. Really good to see that from him, because he definitely, he's fallen out of that inner circle of trust in recent weeks. He's a guy that we're definitely going to need to rely on to get into the postseason and down this final stretch. And Brash comes in, gets the save, which was interesting. I don't know exactly why they brought Brash in. Let me know in the comments down below if I'm missing something on why we brought Brash in rather than Munoz in the save situation. Looking at the player breakdowns for the pitchers, Drew Rasmussen, 9 swinging strikes on 79 pitches, not an elite rate, not terrible either. 4 on 29 four-seam fastballs and 4 on 25 cutters. That four-seam cutter thing is working. And then, again, I'm going to keep referencing this season. Lance Praz, and then the sinker was his 3rd most used pitch. So 3 different types of fastballs, including that cutter, as basically his primaries that he's mixing in. And credit to Lance Prozowski, he just had an excellent video about why the cutter is kind of changing the MLB this year. Especially the Brewers are one of those teams that really is killing the MLB with it. The Guardians also, he mentioned several other teams. But the sinker, 1 on 13 as opposed to 4 each on the cutter and then the 4-seamer. Then none on 6 sweepers, 5 curves, and a changeup. Even though it's only 12 pitches, I like seeing that we didn't whiff on any of his breaking balls. We actually only swung at the sweeper a few times, but didn't swing at the curve or the changeup in those 5 and 1 pitches respectively. But we hit him hard, 96.2 average velocity on here. So overall, the Mariners did a good enough job. Even though Drew Rasmussen has this nasty cutter, he's got a good four-seam fastball, averaging 95.9, but getting up to 97.5. And then that sinker is basically a sinker and four-seamer that can really play off each other, same velocity, and a cutter that's just a little bit lower, but a big range on the cutter from 88 to 93. So, he can switch those, those 3 fastballs up basically, and get what he needs to get done with that. But then, luckily, right, Griffin Jax comes in, and he's just having a little bit of a rough year right now. And you manage to, Cal Raleigh, bottom of the zone. He throws him that changeup, and that was just, Griffin Jax clearly didn't want to use that changeup too much. He only used it 2 times on 24 pitches here. But he threw it right at the bottom of the zone to Cal, and Cal just scooped that one, just uppercut. A little bit of a golf swing, but the way that Cal is able to adjust mid-swing, I think, is one of the best attributes. And when you look at his swing in recent weeks, tell me what you guys think of this down in the comments below. Sometimes I really like to get into some analogies. I think Cal Raleigh's right-handed swing a few weeks ago was looking like Shohei Ohtani, which I know is a left-handed hitter, but it sounds weird, but bear with me. There was a really strong two-handed finish where he throws it over the shoulder, and he didn't get too low. He was staying pretty tall. Obviously, Ohtani's a little taller than him. It looks a little different, but that's what it reminded me of with all the moving pieces in his swing a few weeks ago. Definitely when we were in, the Tiger series and right before the break. But when I was watching him these last few series, I noticed him going down to one knee a lot. And it looked like Mitch Haniger. Now, Mitch Haniger is also insanely athletic. But when Cal Raleigh's swing was going down to a knee and looking like Mitch Haniger, there's a lot of moving pieces, and he has so much control in the torque in his body, so much control over his wrists, that it doesn't look terrible. Like, I'm not saying it looked inathletic or terrible. I just think with all the moving pieces, he got a little bit low. It went from looking like Shohei Ohtani to Mitch Haniger, if you can understand what I'm saying. I think, these swings are so complex, and Cal Raleigh is so much control that it's going to look really, really athletic when he does stuff, especially, the way he looks this season. He's on a different level athletically than he's been previously. But I feel like that swing right there, which was from the left side, and his left-hand swing has always been more consistent, but the tweaks that he made earlier in the year, just in the Giants series, way earlier in the year, I think the batting average might have been low through 10 games, but the approach looked just elite for Cal Raleigh already. And I remember they were talking about how he shortened up. He wasn't taking quite as big of a leg kick from the left side, but he was just able to take a shorter leg kick and then get behind the ball and drive through the ball. Even though this was an uppercut swing, I felt like it was something that you could repeat, which to make an uppercutting swing that is a repetitive motion, you have to be extremely athletic. And that's where we get back into Cal Raleigh is just taking more advantage, I think, of his athleticism in the swing. He looks a little more comfortable right now than he did a week ago. And I say, that comparison and everything, just to put the best way to put this to words, right? It's just as much of an art as it is a science. And shout out, big credit to our hitting coaches, Bobby Magallanes, Kevin Seitzer, and specifically Magallanes had that interview earlier in the year where he talks about hitting being more, you're not going to help, a Ronald Acuna, a Julio Rodriguez, who's already really good at swinging the bat. You're not going to just go up there and say, oh no, this is what's wrong. You've got to learn about them on a day-to-day basis and understand what makes them tick as a human being. And then you can understand what might be throwing them off on a given day and what you can do to help them. This is why we love baseball, is the human interest stories and everything like that. Make sure to follow me this season for all of that type of stuff. But we will get into Luis Castillo's pitch mix now before kind of talking about what's going on today, which if you're in Seattle, you definitely know what's going on today. One of the most special things there is. We go to Luis Castillo's pitch mix. 9 swinging strikes on 99 pitches, whereas Drew Rasmussen had 9 on 79. Luis has 9 on 99 pitches, 7 on 49 four seams, 1 on 33 sinkers, 1 on 10 changeups, and 0 on 7 sliders. The fact that he threw 10 changeups is encouraging. The fact that he only threw 7 sliders wouldn't be as encouraging usually. The fact that he relied so heavily on the four seam and the sinker, going 49 plus 33, quick math, 82 out of 99 pitches were fastballs. Luis Castillo is one of the few pitchers who can get away with doing that. And because at least he had, 17% breaking ball, he switched it up just enough where it played off of his fastballs, and he kept the Rays at bay other than 2 home runs for 7 innings. Kept the pitch count in order. You would really like to see that slider and that changeup featuring more, getting more swing and miss. And if he did that, then this start would look like, maybe we can bump Luis Castillo a little bit up from right now. He feels like a top 60 pitcher in the MLB up to maybe the top 50 to 40 range. But I'm waiting, I'm going to wait until I see more swing and miss on the changeup and the slider before we move him back up into the top 50 starting pitchers. When he does show that stuff, he could I think he moves straight up into the top 45 because there's a big kind of tier gap between, the guys who are pitching like a Drew Rasmussen who don't have innings concerns, and then the guys who, either do have innings concerns like a Drew Rasmussen, or they're really unestablished but have potential, or they're established but are pitching really poorly. Once you get past that range, you get to the guys like Luis Castillo who have had major blips, and whether it's their stats on the surface or it's under the surface and their underlying numbers on StatCast. You can see a lot of pitchers just in that past 45. Once it gets the 30 to 45 range, you got a lot of guys. You'd feel solid starting on your fantasy team. 45 and down, it really starts to get murky. But anyway, with Luis Castillo, 91 or 90.7 mile an hour average exit velocity for him as well. He gives up a few really, really hard hit balls, over 100 miles an hour, but that's to be expected with Luis Castillo. When he does get hit, he's going to get hit hard. But he is as good as anybody at throwing fastballs down the pipe, having them move a bunch, pumping the velocity up when he needs to, and living in that mid to upper 90s with a bunch of movement on fastballs. And sometimes that changeup and slider. But even when he doesn't have that, where when he was a younger guy, he would really struggle. Now, as a veteran, he has become a much more cerebral pitcher, I would say. So shout out to Luis Castillo in this game, and shout out to the new lineups experience. That's one thing I wanted to hit on as well. Cal Raleigh, I know there was, I heard certain people talking about maybe you move Cal Raleigh down in the order because he's really struggling. They were saying stuff like for the last month, he hasn't been that good, which I definitely disagree with. I understand where they're coming from. Watching him and his swing really kind of change over a few weeks, and he definitely looked different at the plate. But here, this at-bat was excellent too. The way that he put Griffin Jacks in a hole, got ahead in the count, and then smashed it. He is a really calculated hitter, and although I had my qualms at first about this new lineup, a lot of them were about Ben Williamson. The order at the top, I also thought, I didn't think it was broken, so I didn't know why you would fix it, but Randy Rosarena is doing well leading off. Cal is starting to really heat up in the two-hole, and I think they're really setting the table for Julio in a way, where he is working in that number 3 spot. So even though on paper, maybe you put that speed higher in the lineup with Julio and then have that power behind the speed to bat him in with Cal. If it's working, and one guy is just really setting the table better for the other guy. That's why guys like Kyle Schwarber have hit leadoff in recent years. A lineup like the Phillies with a lot of boppers like that, a lot of power heavy guys, is just going to arrange it to try to break down those pitchers in the most table-setting way possible. But you get down the lineup too, and even though you got like Jorge 0 for 3 with a strikeout, same thing for Gino, and then Canzone 0 for 3. Those guys at bats were not poor. Jorge and Gino had a hard hit, and they're doing what they need to. They're providing enough of a threat in the middle of the lineup where the guys at the top are, faster, stealing more bases. Things fit together, even though you don't have quite as much of a pest. And the Rays just traded away their big pest, another former Mariner, Jose Caballero. So interesting that these teams fighting for playoff position are trading away their pests. And I guess this this lineup is more just built on analytics. Break them down. Everybody is just taking calculated, experienced at-bats. And I haven't seen this experience of a Mariners lineup in a long time. Comment question of the day, let's say, when is the last Mariners lineup you have felt like is this experienced? We could look at service time and how many years each guy has played and stuff, accomplishments. But I would like to ask you guys subjectively, how does this Mariners lineups experience compare to ones of the past? And when's the last time we had a lineup this experience that you remember? Let me know. I'm hoping to remember some good ones down in the comments below for different things. I'll start off by saying that real kind of that first control the zone lineup in the 2020 COVID season with Shedlong, Dylan Moore. Something about that lineup was really, really scrappy. And although, I mean, I know I'm asking about the most experienced lineup. If you want to say the most scrappy lineup, or for that matter, let's say what's your, what lineup you think was the best at a certain individual skill. And I'm going to go ahead and say that 2020 lineup, that control the zone lineup, where we went, I think it was like 25 and 30. I think it was 29-31. And we missed the playoffs to the Astros on a tiebreaker, who ended up going to the ALCS and losing to the Randy Arozarena-led Rays, who went to the World Series and lost to the Dodgers. But in that 2020 season, right, we went 29-31, despite not having really a ton of stars. We had Kyle Seager play really, really well in that year, and then we had Kyle Lewis win Rookie of the Year. But guys like Dylan Moore were getting consistent at-bats, just being feisty. Shed Long getting at bats, just being feisty. I know, Fraley, I forget if Fraley even came up that year, or if he had only came up the next year. It's that part's blending together a little bit. And then, Marco had an awesome year. Marco Gonzalez. You go back and look at my videos from that year on this channel. That's the last season that I was doing consistent Mariners coverage. And that's what we were talking about, was control the zone, dominate the zone, be feisty, be scrappy, be pests. And that's what that lineup was built around. So appreciation for that. But I appreciate this new lineup and its experience, and I'm excited to see if it can take us into October. Anyway, that's going to do it from me over here at the Don Steen channel. As I'm sure you know, I had to put the Cal Raleigh All-Star player tee up, first of all. And I don't know exactly where it is because I'm filming a little bit of a different way, but that man right there is going to have his number retired at T-Mobile Park tonight. I will be in attendance. I've got to go get ready to go to this game. I'm going to try to get this recap up tonight for you guys right after the game. But with that being said, I'm going to go enjoy this. I'm going to tell the story about this jersey, but this jersey, this is the Ichiro jersey that I wore to every single game from the ages of about, I'd say 10 or 11 to maybe like 8 through like 12. I don't even remember exactly what it was. But I wore this jersey to every game when I was a kid. And for years, especially after Ichiro left the Mariners, I was into autographs. And, as like a kid and a teenager, and I just, I saw that like the younger kids, were the real ones who they wanted to autograph the stuff for more than me, who was starting to look like a teenager at the time, like 13, 14 and stuff. And that was kind of the tail end of it. I was still getting autographs, but, I would go to the games. I went to spring training 2 times. I was lucky enough to do that actually a little bit later on. But, I remember the Marlins series back in 2017. I went to every single game of that series, showed up to the stadium at like noon to 1 for each of those games. And there was a day game. I showed up ridiculously early, like 7 or 8. Got into the stadium first thing every single day. Ichiro didn't sign the whole series until Wednesday. And, as a kid, I didn't get my jersey signed, but I was determined that I was going to get this jersey signed, and that would be my final autograph. And I would retire from autographs, but I have to go and satisfy my childhood hero. Ichiro is my favorite baseball player, athlete, role model, hero. So anyway, I go I go to that Marlins series, don't get it. But then Ichiro does sign with the team for spring training the following year. And we didn't know how much he was going to play into the season or anyway. I go to spring training with my big goal to get Ichiro's autograph. And my mom and I end up going to spring training. We get there and we watch half an inning of the Mariners that night that we get there. Ichiro goes out in left field, plays half an inning, and then doesn't lead the game off. Instead, gets pulled out of the game half an inning in. So we came to spring training to see Ichiro, and he gets pulled half an inning into our trip. So I'm worried we're not going to see him again. And then Anyway, so I'm worried that we won't even see him on the practice fields. He won't be out there. But Ichiro's always around the team. If you go to Mariners games, you'll always see Ichiro, whether it's, right when you can get in the stadium, hours before the game, he'll be out there, usually almost always in full uniform. Whether he's the one time he caught a Justice Sheffield bullpen, he's always shagging balls in the outfield, doing his stretches, doing drills and stuff, even hitting the cage, working with our players wherever he sees fit. But we didn't see him the second day of that trip. I remember the third day, the final day, we didn't see him. Then all we were going to do is go to the practice, and then the game, the spring training game after that. Then we had to leave early from that to get to our flight. So we go to that practice that day. No, Ichiro's not coming back, but just want to see some of the other Mariners and stuff. Towards the end of that practice, nearing the beginning of the game, which was in Surprise at the Rangers Stadium, we're at Peoria, and then Ichiro comes out and starts stretching in the outfield, does lunges all the way across the outfield. Might have done like bear crawls or like inchworms all the way across the outfield. And then, he's just stretching, and I'm just watching. And, that was a special, special moment. But we stayed there, and all of the other autograph, dealers, all these people who clearly were there just to get the autograph, had left at that point. Nobody knew Ichiro was still there. He was hitting in the cage behind a big closed thing so that nobody could see him until very late. But there was just a few people there, some from Japan, some real Mariners fans, all people that really, really wanted to do anything they could to see Ichiro in any way they could. And I'll never forget when Ichiro came and he started signing autographs, and for the first time, he took that jersey that you see right there in that frame. He held it. I have a picture that my mom took of me getting it signed. He signed it, and that was the last autograph that I ever got. Nothing will ever top that. Ichiro, my earliest videos of me, as a kid, this probably sounds too unreal to be true. I'll find them, honestly, and I should probably post them on YouTube. I'll tell you what, when we get to 1,000 subscribers, I will post my Ichiro baby videos on here. But to finish the story off, Ichiro, my idol, he means everything to me, and I can't wait to see him get his number retired tonight. Been waiting for this moment a long time. Anyway, that's going to do it. I've been your boy Don Skeen. See you guys tomorrow. Go M's.